Hey, welcome to our first writer's commentary on Drop One, which is the AI narrated collection. And I am so excited. So I promised that I would record the video when we hit 300 subscribers, and we have 300 subs. So here's the video. I'm going to go through a little bit of the vision for the channel, behind the scenes commentary, and a little bit about where I see it could be going, and exactly like a call for collaborations, because we would love to make this the best channel it can be, and to really you can message me like your favorite people in the genre, or um your own real life stories. So if you have a real life story, please send it to me and message me and let me know. And we're thinking about doing like a drop with that. And if you are a fiction writer and you write horror, please reach out if you want to collaborate. If you're a voice actor or a live action actor, yeah, I'd love to talk about collaborations and see what we can do. This is really about like campfire stories. So these are stories that are meant to be shared, and we love the idea of it being out of context. I'm working with a collaborator, and the idea of it being out of context was just so perfect. I'll let you know a little bit about my own history. So, in college, I struggled with my mental health, and I had to take this course, which was a freshman course, text and context. I dropped it 7 times. I failed it once, and the very last time I aced it, and also my paper was published, and it was my first ever publication. And actually in the publication it said great freshman writing, and I was a second year senior. And I was a junior twice too. So um yeah, so the idea of me doing something that's out of context has been a long time coming, considering my text and context long held career that was outstanding, and not in a good way, in the way that it wasn't there. So yeah, I thought we can dive into this. Um, we created it with AI in video, and that is something that my collaborator had experience with. And I just want to let you know that we love artists, and we wanted to start this with what we had. And, as soon as we have, collaborators to work with, resources to like put into it, like that is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to do everything we can, and we want this to be built with the audience in mind, and really make this a place where everyone feels like they have a say, and feels like they want to take this to the campfire with them. So yeah, I'm gonna go through all of the stories. So first, I just want to say that something that these stories came from. I had a call with a friend, and we decided to just tell each other scary stories. And it really took me like one kind of like soak in the bathtub to write all these stories and to share them with my friend. And then I wrote these down into an ebook in 2023. And yeah, it was just really something I really enjoyed to do. I did a live stream. So the ebook is called Lantern Lines, and it has all these stories. So I'm gonna share my sound too, if that's possible. I don't know if that is possible. I'm sorry, I'm kind of doing this on the fly. Um, okay, so I'm sharing computer sound. I'm gonna try to leave it as low as possible without doing it. So this is the trailer. It's created with
They say the
InVideo.
scariest stories aren't written in books. They're whispered in the dark, the kind that makes you glance over your shoulder, wondering if you're really alone. This is Out of
The
Context Horror,
lantern
from the
was a big
minds of
part of
Katie
it.
Moran and RKK, a place where every image, every sound, and every shadow hides a story you'll never forget. But the answers? They'll stay just out of reach.
This script was actually written by the AI. Trained
Dare to
my
watch?
AI with everything that I wanted to do, and it suggested it's the trailer. Um,
There was a
so
teenage
I love
boy,
this story.
Alan, who took this. He was walking past the creek and saw the dead body of a teenager with blue jeans, a
I think
red
I might have
t-shirt,
to
and
turn it
black
down a
rain
little
boots.
bit. So this is, I wanted it to be a big payoff at the end, and
Alan took the bait.
subconsciously, this
When the
actually
police arrived,
came
the
from
body was
this
gone.
idea of
Alan
feeling like
promised
I
them that
was
he was telling the truth. The police
gaslit
decided to
for a
search
long
the
time in my
surrounding area.
life,
They found
and
nothing.
this idea that this is really
The
the
next
fear
day,
underneath
Alan was
this is
walking
this
home
idea
again
of
and
like
saw the same
gaslighting.
teenager with
And
blue jeans,
gaslighting
a
is when
red
someone
t-shirt,
tells
and
you they
black
lie
rain
to you
boots.
and then they tell you
He
you're
called the police
crazy for
again, and
not
the same
believing their
problem came
lie.
up.
No one is here alone.
And this is
I'll
what
know
this
when
story,
you're
I
telling
wanted
the
it to
truth.
be kind of like
I
a
saw a
little bit of
teenager
like
with
getting
blue
under that
jeans,
feeling
red
of being
t-shirt, and
gaslit
black rain boots
and
making down the creek.
not being believed in the idea that someone can call you crazy.
This
So
time,
this actually
Eugene
goes a
got a
lot
patrol team
deeper
watched
than
the
this
area overnight
story.
and into the
I
next
love the
day.
way the
The patrol
story
team saw nothing,
comes together
but
because
Alan
it's
walked
just
past them.
so
Alan called the cops
so
the next day
beautifully
and said he saw the same
I
body of a
loved the
teenager with blue jeans,
animation that it
red
actually
t-shirt, and
showed that
black
he was
rain
in that
boots.
outfit because it
Eugene
added an
told
extra
Alan that
layer
he needed to
of
make an appointment with a
fear when I watched
therapist.
it myself. And again, these animations can only do so much, and I'd love to have like live
The
action
next day,
actors. That
Eugene
would
received a
be
police
a
report
dream
about
come
the body of a
true.
teenager found
So
face
yeah,
down
if
in a
you are
creek.
interested in
Eugene
collaborating,
said that
just
Alan would
message
stop
me.
making false reports, but it wasn't Alan who made the
And
calls.
here you'll see this idea that this is kind of like the idea of someone gaslighting someone else. And
Eugene
then
went down
I
to the
added
creek
this
and saw
extra
the body of a
element
teenage boy in blue jeans, a red t-shirt, and
of
black rain
this
boots,
person having
just
this
like Alan had said.
realization
When the
that
cops
they
picked up the
finally
body,
believed
Eugene
someone, but they
realized it
just
was
didn't
Alan.
know exactly what it meant. And I went through psychosis myself, and this was actually something that I kind of like had all of these fears and people understood them eventually, but also that didn't make them real. And that was like a really big turning point in my life, and
A
that
new transfer
people
so
weren't
excited her to
gaslighting
stay in
me,
the
but it
States.
just
She
wasn't
was a
really
senior in
happening.
high
So
school. On the
yeah, I
first day of getting to
tucked
the
away
States,
that
she met the
fear of being
family she was
gaslit.
staying with.
So this one, the travel student, again goes back to that
They
time of
spent the night
psychosis. I
and gave
actually
her a
thought I was being
backpack that looked
poisoned.
like the universe and had an image
And
of a
this
child with
dream
headphones in it that
actually
glowed in the
was the
dark with a
combination. I had
keychain
a
that
dream
held the keys
once
to the house.
where I was in the
The
hospital,
keychain had
and
a red cardboard charm on it.
I heard in the dream someone told me to run, and that's what happens at the end of this story. So it's like so bizarre. I know these things are like actually things that are like nightmarish, and they they have given me nightmares. I'll
Eliza
show you
wept
the
some
part.
more. On the
Um,
following Tuesday,
but
Eliza
yeah, we
noticed a knot
loved
in her
how
stomach.
a lot of the
She felt sick.
characters kind of go from
When
this
she got
anime
home, she spent the
style
rest of the day in the
to kind of
bathtub.
like
She spent the
this
next day in the bathtub
animated
too.
look. And part of that is we want it to be so out of context. So we actually kept it and we didn't think we should edit it. And I love that it's kind of like you don't know what to expect.
She would go downstairs to eat
Um,
with the family whenever she
yeah,
felt
this
like it.
part,
She
I
didn't
got
spend
some
much time
feedback
with
when
her
I
own
initially
family and
showed
enjoyed being able
people
to eat
that
meals
they
with the
thought
family
this
she
was
was
her
staying with.
family, but
She
she
felt
actually is
sick
from
that whole week.
Australia,
When the
and this
weekend came around,
family,
she thought she was
um,
losing her mind.
just
She was in the
it was just
hallway
a
when she
family,
saw a girl with the same
I didn't
backpack she
actually
had
assign
being dragged
any
down the hallway.
race to the
She was
family she
there
was
alone,
staying with,
and
or
when she
any
blinked,
ethnicity.
the girl was
And
gone.
again, these are
She
so
didn't
out
tell
of
the family
context.
that
Like
night
it's like
again. After
I don't
dinner,
want
she
to
started
add
feeling
context
worse.
that doesn't have
She went
anything
to
to
lie
do with
down.
anything.
When she fell asleep,
Um,
she had a
so
nightmare.
yeah, this
She
dream
saw,
actually, I
in her
had a
dream,
dream
the house
where
where she was staying, and
someone
she
told
saw
me to
young girls
run,
with a
and the
backpack and a
poisoning
keychain
came
with the
from
cardinal all
me
looking sick.
actually
One girl
thinking I was
came up to
being
her and
poisoned
grabbed
in
her
real life,
shoulders. "They're poisoning you. They
which
did it to us.
did
Run!"
not end well.
Eliza woke up and
For
pulled
me,
the
I wasn't
family
being
downstairs.
poisoned,
They shouted
but
at the girl,
I
"Dessert!"
had a lot going on at the time. So yeah, absolutely absurd stories. And these are actually the team versions of like what I actually experienced. So this is, I'm putting an iPad because this is specifically talking about this generation of children, like Generation Alpha, and them being on their iPad, and the parents here not wanting him to be on his iPad and wanting him to go out. And I think children learning technology is something that is actually beneficial, and that technology isn't this thing that brings you away from connection, but it actually brings you toward connection. And a lot of older generations don't see that because they didn't grow up with it. And a lot of the times, if a kid's on their iPad, they're FaceTiming with their friends. And I actually wanted to show this specifically with this idea, and you'll see it when he looks at the mood chart, this idea that here it is.
So well, in fact, Mr. Andrews gave Rory a gift. Rory opened the tiny box and a mood ring was inside. Mr. Andrews told Rory that he wanted Rory to be aware of how he was always feeling.
And now that is
Mr.
really
Andrews gave
important
him a
because
chart
I
that
think
said
there's
with
such
the
of
colors
a
this
such a
or
culture
you
of
drew the
everyone should
blues
know
to
how they're
terrify the red.
feeling and we should be hyper aware. And I think sometimes it's counterproductive because what we're
Rory
feeling
never
can be
took his
things we
reading,
get stuck in,
and he
and our
would tell
feelings actually don't
everyone around
define
him
us,
what
and
the
sometimes they're
colors
a
meant
byproduct of how we
and
live
how
our
he was
life.
feeling.
And
The ring became
shouldn't
tighter and
be like
tighter
a
for him over
guidepost on what
time
we should
as he
do. So
started
actually this
feeling
one, it's
all
really
the colors
about, it
at
talks about him
once.
being underweight because I wanted to really emphasize that his finger got bigger with his as he had
One
so much
day,
time
Rory
with
went over to Mr. Andrews' house in the morning.
the older gentleman, and I
He
think it's really
found
important. This
Mr.
actually I had a
Andrews
nightmare about
sleeping.
this exact scene. I wasn't sure if I should keep it because I was like, this is kind of like
He
weird,
heard a
like I don't know why he
noise
looks like
coming
that. It's
from the shed
scary.
at the
But then
back
I
of the
had a
house.
nightmare about it, like an actual nightmare,
Rory
and I
followed the
actually saw
sound.
that figure and I
He
was
had this
like, we're
eerie
keeping it.
feeling in the pit of his
And I
stomach.
love that it like doesn't make
Rory went
sense because
into
it
it,
like it's supposed to
unlocked
be
the
out of
door.
context.
Inside, he
Um,
saw big
and yeah, I
freezers, and there was
absolutely
an
like love that
awful
idea
smell.
and
He noticed the freezers were
love the way it's
all
put
labeled.
together.
The freezers were labeled with the name of human body parts. One freezer read fingers, and this is the freezer
Yeah, I
Rory
had when I
used.
originally thought of this, this is actually very similar to how I envisioned it, like the fingers
Inside
with the
were
mood rings.
hundreds of
We
sealed
actually
fingers
had to
with
edit
human
it to
rings
get
in them.
the fingers with the mood
Rory's
rings,
ring
and
turned
that
bright red.
specifically was because I
He tried
had
to get
this
his ring
vision
off when he
of
heard
the
the
mood
door swing
rings and the
open
fingers
behind
being
him.
there, and I wanted that to be a visual. So this is actually one of my favorite ones because I think so much of it is like how are we feeling and us kind of like feeling like we need to be aware of how we are at all times and be aware of everything. And I think the hyper awareness is actually harmful, um, and can be just the one, honey, you sound
An
different.
elderly couple lived in Florida.
Um,
John.
we
Jane
actually
asked
had
Jane
to
for some
edit a couple
information. John
times
came to visit her.
because
Jane and
I
John were
used
planning on
pronouns and
attending their
not the
granddaughter's
characters'
graduation in
names.
North
So
Carolina.
this
Jane
is
told
actually the
John he
second
should go
run
without her.
with it in
John
the
did not take the
AI
invitation.
because it had switched characters, which I kind of liked. And I love the idea of here kind of like it being like you don't really know what someone looks like. And specifically, this is important because these are meant to be stories told around a campfire,
Jane insisted
and
that he
it's
go
supposed
without
to
her for
mirror
a
your
week.
imagination.
John
When you
agreed that
think
he
of
would.
when you hear a story and
Jane
you
had a
think of a
friend drive her
character, whether
home the
it's
next
reading in a
day.
book
When she
or
got
hearing
there,
it
she saw
audibly,
John sitting in the
you kind of
backyard.
have this like
John, you decided
ever
to stay.
I
changing
belong here with you.
shifting of
Honey, you
what a
sound different.
character
Are
looks
you sad
like.
too?
And I think there's
John shook
something
his head.
nightmarish in that, is that you don't know what someone looks like. And also, I don't
For the
know if this
next
is
couple of
a
days,
universal thing, but
Jane
I have
noticed John's
dreams where
voice
I know
never
where
sounded the
someone,
same.
I know who someone is in my dream, but they might not look like that person, or they'll shift into a different person if it's like symbolically they represent the same thing to me. And that's the message I'm supposed to take
On the
from the
third day,
dream.
the phone rang.
But yeah,
Jane
this
noticed he
idea of
was
like you
not going
don't
to
really
answer
know
the
what someone
phone,
looks
so
like
she
is
answered
kind
it
of like
herself
supposed
as
to
he watched television
show,
from
and
his
we kept
reclining
it
chair.
because it's supposed to
Jane answered the
show the
phone. It was
imagination. And
John's
like if
voice on the
someone was
other
just
side
telling
of
you
the
this
phone.
story,
I
they
just
would
wanted to
look
check in
different
on you.
in
Your
the context
graduation was
of
wonderful. How have you been
in
feeling?
Jane dropped
every
the phone when
scene
she
that you
recognized
imagine in
John's
your
voice.
mind.
The
And
elderly man in the
I
recliner took
absolutely
the
love
television
that
remote and
idea.
turned on
And I
the
thought it
TV.
was really, really kind of in line with this idea of like these being stories you share around a campfire. So this one is in black and white and
House.
itself, and I loved that it put in like all of these kind of like spooky things in the house, and that this house was kind of like alive, and part of this feels like the house is its own entity. And I think originally when I thought about this, I wasn't sure if it was going to be like a ghost story or if it was
Anthony
going
had
to be
trouble
like an
sleeping because Jessica was
invader.
snoring.
And I actually
Anthony
wrote
spent
this
most nights on
one
the couch, which
a couple
upset Jessica.
times. This was a rewrite. I rewrote it and I wasn't sure if I was going to have it be like an invader or a ghost. And in this context, which is out of
One
context,
night,
it could
Jessica was
be
in bed
either.
and awoke to a knocking on the wall that grew louder
And
and
also
louder.
I
Jessica
love
became
that it's more
terrified.
of a ghost
She could
story
feel
feel because
Anthony
you
next to her
see
in the bed
her, but
and
you
was
don't
so
see
glad
anyone
she
with
had
her.
Anthony there
And
when she
on
was
occasion
scared.
you see someone. And
Terrified
I
that
think
someone had
that
broken
kind of
into the
like
house, Jessica whispered,
mirrors that like you
"What
don't
do we
know if
do?"
someone's actually there or if this is like a story of like her
The banging became
imagining
louder and louder
someone
until it
there.
reached the door.
And then
Jessica could barely
also, like,
move,
it's
but
like
she felt
maybe there's
comforted
someone
in
in
the
the
blanket
house,
next to
and
her.
maybe
Jessica's
Anthony
heart
knows
started
this
pounding
because
inside
he's
of her
pounding on the
chest.
door.
Jessica did not know
And
what to do and was too afraid to move.
I also love
Then
this
she heard
figure
Anthony
there. I
scream from
I
the other side of
wanted to
the
keep
door.
that too. I
Open the
actually
door.
fought to keep that with my collaborator because I feel like the things I'm having nightmares about are these like out of context like little figures and like things that like are a little scary. So I actually have nightmares about this channel. Um Yeah, so I have nightmares myself about these things, and some of it comes from my real life nightmares, things I've been through. And I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you who has subscribed, every single view. I appreciate all of you. I love you all so much. This has meant the world to me, and to see people message me talking about collaborations and wanting to help out, and also telling me their real life stories of things. I'm gonna try to create Google Forms for real life stories and fiction writers, like a call for collaborators. Um, yeah, I really want to see this be something that is created by everyone who experiences it, and I want everyone to feel like their voice is heard, which I know a lot of people who are outside of the horror genre um see it as kind of like this like dark, kind of like scary, like eerie in the shadows kind of thing. But every time I've been to a convention, um it's always meant so much to me that the horror community is just so strong, and it's really filled with some of the kindest people. When I used to do interviews on my poetry platform, I would interview horror poets in the month of October, and it's also my favorite month. Halloween's my favorite holiday and favorite day of the year. And I just think about, they would write about kindness, and it would be some of the most profound insights on kindness that I have ever read. And yeah, I've always loved horror. Someone asked me, where does this fit into the context of everything you're doing? And, obviously it's out of context. But yeah, this idea that it's so important to me. Horror was my first love of any genre. I was, in first grade, writing in my first grade journal, watching Scream and Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween over the weekend. And, that wasn't even the first time I was watching them. And I've always felt like horror specifically has such deep symbology about the human condition, and there's just so much that is so beautiful. And I actually used to have a lot of nightmares about cartoons, which is why I watched a lot of like things like horror, because I didn't have nightmares about about the horror. I had nightmares about a lot of these like kid shows that just really scared me. Like, I was absolutely terrified of there's this part in Cinderella where the stepmom is like, petting the cat, and it's like this weird kind of like imagery. And I remember I was alone watching that, and my dad was like doing laundry, and I was so terrified, beyond terrified. I ran out of the room, and I was watching so much horror at that point too. I ran out of the room and just like went to go find him because I didn't want to be alone because I was so afraid. And yeah, I think a lot of like the AI generative art that has to do with this like cartoonish stuff, it reminds me of like that's something I really fear. Like, cartoons really scare me because it's not human. And we're gonna do another drop with human narration, and we want to really like open dialogue with, like, is AI generative art something that adds to it? Is it something that takes away? Is human narrative, human voices, is it more powerful than AI? Or is AI creepy and it really adds to the horror context? But we'll keep it out of context. So thank you so much. Thanks for subscribing. I love all the messages. I am making a point to read my messages. Instagram is the best platform to reach me on. I look at my message requests And yeah, I'm answering anything that I see about this channel because it means so much to me. And I'm so grateful to every single one of you who has subscribed, who has left feedback, left comments. So if you have any comments, feel free to just to write it on the video itself. Leave a comment. It means the world to me. And I'm going to be answering every comment that comes in. I'm going to really be looking at my messages, and if anyone opens a dialogue about this, I am so receptive to it. Thank you so much for being a part of this, and I hope we can make this the best that it can be for us and, make it something that adds to our lives in a positive way. And it's meant so much to me so far. Yeah, and I hope one day that I will meet all of you around a campfire and I will be hearing your stories. Thank you.